I have a confession to make. I never actually finished Project Zero 4. I had one final chapter to get through when this announcement was made, and due to my frustrations with the awkward emulation issues, I decided, do you know what, I'm just going to hold off and wait for the official release to play it properly. So I can't give a full final verdict on the game just yet, but no doubt I'll make some sort of short video about it after I've played that version.
Hello, yes, this is that video. I told you I'd make one. In case you were unaware of what you just saw, that was a clip from my Fatal Frame or Project Zero retrospective back at Halloween. I made that video because Fatal Frame is my favourite horror series of all time, and I wanted to celebrate it at the spookiest time of year. Of course, when I made it, I had a problem. I had to talk about the fourth game, Mask of the Lunar Eclipse, a game that never released in the West. So I emulated it and set myself up to talk about my disappointment for its lack of a Western release. After all, the game launched for the Wii in Japan in 2008 and Nintendo, who took over publishing rights at the time, arbitrarily decided to never bother releasing it overseas. As a fan of the series, that has always been a real blow to me, and I wanted to highlight just how sad the decision still made me to this day. Then, while writing the script, Koei Tecmo had to go and announce that not only would the game be getting a remaster for modern systems, that remaster was going to be released outside Japan for the very first time. So I changed the whole script, this time pretending it's still only a Japanese release before setting up a reveal that, oh wait, they announced this important news. Well, the remaster failed to release before last Halloween, sadly, so I couldn't talk about it in that retrospective. But it's out now, and I've played it, so this is the follow-up video running through my thoughts on a game that I legitimately never thought I would play as an official release. If you're not aware of Fatal Frame Mask of the Lunar Eclipse, you play as Ruka Minazuki, Misaki Aso, and Choshiro Kirishima, three people who had ventured back to a haunted island where something terrible happened several years earlier. Ruka and Misaki were two girls in a group of 5 who went missing during a ritual, while Choshiro was the detective assigned to find them. They all have their own reasons for returning to the island, with the girls wanting to uncover their lost memories, while Choshiro tries to find Ruka. Much of the game takes place in the island's hospital, split into a standard infirmary and a mental health institute where people are treated for an ailment unique to the island, Moonlight Syndrome. You explore these locations as the 3 characters, all the while being attacked by ghosts that you can only fight off with a camera or a flashlight. Was it worth the wait? How did it compare to playing on an emulator last year? And was it sufficiently spooky? Let's find out, shall we? The thing that was immediately apparent to me watching the announcement trailer while recording the original game was how much better the game looked in its remastered form. Character models were noticeably more detailed, and the lighting had seen some massive changes, giving the game a better colour palette. Not that this new lighting affected the atmosphere in the slightest, as there were now more creative uses of light and shadow while maintaining the original foreboding sense of dread. This is a game dripping in atmosphere. Long, narrow corridors with softly swaying curtains, poorly lit hospital rooms full of screens concealing who knows what, light pouring in through cracks. The opening parts of the game are screaming at you that everything you're about to do is a bad idea, but you need to do it anyway. Sound design is a huge factor in this atmosphere too. The series has always nailed it, with tinny and incomprehensible cassette tapes and horrific ghostly screams, but everything just seems to have gone that little bit further. As you navigate the different rooms of the hospital, each one has its own unpleasant soundscape that refuses to explain itself. In many cases, it seems like this soundscape has been enhanced for the remaster. For instance, one room in the original that occasionally played some soft creaking noises has now boosted those noises, making it sound like something covered in chains is creeping up on you constantly. It took several chapters before I found out the noise was a loose cupboard door flapping about in a draft, but it was still incredibly effective. There was a lot about the original I found good when I emulated it, but playing an official version with a professional translation makes me appreciate what it does so much more. One of the issues I had in the emulated version was a lack of understanding with the plot. Part of this was due to the translation perhaps not being as good as it could be. To be fair, a translation made for free by fans in their spare time can't compare to a translation by professionals, so I'm not here to say they did a bad job, but the official localization does iron out the issues. The result is a plot that I feel may be one of the best in the series. Just like the other games in the series, there is a terrible ritual that failed and filled the island with murder ghosts. Where this one differs though, is the fact that the player characters all have personal connections to it. The horror is fresh, since the failed ritual only happened 10 years before the game takes place. Ruka, Misaki and Madoka, our 3 playable girls, were all part of that failed ritual, while Choshiro is the detective who stayed them. The personal connection just makes it work that little bit better. Not to mention the whole game revolves around a mysterious supernatural illness that causes memory and personality loss, along with distorted faces. No one knows what caused it, and the hospital on the island is doing whatever the hell it can to cure it, even down to using torture devices on some people. It's incredibly chilling, particularly when you realise just how many children are affected by it. But, like I said in the Fatal Frame retrospective, I legitimately respect the game for making the mental health wing seem kind of cozy rather than a torture dungeon like every other horror thing does with asylums. The rooms are suited to their patients. Ruka's room has a piano, Yuko's room has painting equipment, and Ayako's doll room with screams reflects the terror she inflicts on others. Speaking of Ayako, there are some truly excellent fights here, not least because of that personal connection that protagonists have with the deceased. These aren't random cultists from a century ago. These are people that the cast knew when they were alive. These are fights I can respect on a narrative level with an official translation, but some of them are just terrifying fights in their own right. There's the doctor who likes to run screaming out of walls. There's the upside down woman who swings like a bat. This fucking doll woman, Jesus Christ, why? All of these fights are the right level of tense and unpleasant without once becoming frustrating. Except that one near the end, although I found it less frustrating in the remaster than in the original, but I may have over-prepared for it. Who knows? Oh, and can I just say the improvement of these piano puzzles from awkwardly pointing at piano keys to simply pressing corresponding buttons on the controller is one of the greatest changes this remaster could have possibly done. God, I hated those puzzles in the original. The remaster hasn't really changed a lot, it's just improved a little bit of what's there, and quite frankly I felt that that's all they really needed to do. Also, with the deluxe edition you can wear bunny pajamas. That is all. What's fascinating to me about the reviews of Fatal Frame 4 is the criticism that the game is slow, and yes, welcome to Fatal Frame. It's slow and methodical and tense, and that's how we like it round these parts. But I will acknowledge the criticism that the controls are less than stellar. The original was already a bit wonky to control, although my experience may have been a little tainted by using a PS4 controller as a Wii remote. The remaster is an improvement, but there are still issues. Turning is often a problem. The control scheme sort of uses tank controls, but it's also kind of loose with it. You can turn slightly independent of the camera, but this also creates significant problems when you then try and move the camera and it all gets a bit confused and stuck on itself. It takes a while to get used to using the quick turn function, and even then I would like to criticise the lack of quick turn in the camera view. That said, the controls aren't awful, just awkward in some ways. It didn't wholly affect my experience, but it was noticeable that I have to point it out. As a remaster, it's also kind of hit and miss. There are definitely improvements here. I already pointed out the models and the lighting, but then there are times where textures are clearly reused from the original Wii game, usually just blown up to the current size. Lots of pixelation in a few places as a result. It's utterly strange when so much love and attention was applied to the character models, but then they just kind of skipped out on some of the wall textures. Sometimes this wouldn't be a problem, but there are definitely times where you see it when you're grabbing an item and the camera basically zooms in on the textures. Speaking of skipping out on things, I also did find it weird that the game featured no English dub. Every other game in the series has one, so I half expected them to add one here too. Obviously, not a deal breaker, because I'm not allergic to Japanese or any other foreign language, and there are plenty of people who would prefer to keep the Japanese audio anyway, and they're likely happy as a result. It just feels like a significant corner cut to me. Oh, and also the European release forgot what the series is called here, and just flat out called it Fatal Frame in the cutscene right before the first chapter. That feels like a massive oversight. Look, I've waited 15 years to play this game properly. The emulated version wasn't the best experience, so I was a little concerned that the issues I had with playing it that way weren't going to be addressed in the official version. I am very happy to say that those concerns were unfounded. This is a wonderful thing to finally have. It has absolutely been worth the wait. Some control jank here and there doesn't stop this from being a legitimately terrifying horror game with superb mechanics and arguably one of the strongest stories the series has ever provided us. I honestly would call it one of the best games in the series, possibly in second place, just behind the second game actually. It is honestly a real shame this game was kept from those of us in the West for so long, because this is excellent work all the way through. Rogetsu Island is an intriguing place to explore, the personal stakes of the story make it extra compelling, and the ever-present threat that any ghost you fight can turn into an aggressive Ultra Wraith at any moment makes every single fight tense. This is peak Fatal Frame, and this is what I want out of the series. I'm going to be real with you, I want more of this series, and quite frankly the only way that's going to happen is if every single one of you go and get yourself a copy of this. I don't care if you don't buy digital only games, just buy this game if you like horror. It is a brilliant game which still holds up despite some obvious concessions to the time of its original release. And unfortunately releasing between the Dead Space remake and the Resident Evil 4 remake means this is likely to be overlooked, rather cruelly in fact. But if enough of you buy it, then Koei Tecmo can realise there is an audience here, and they absolutely should make more of them. And that day will be a happy day for me, specifically. I have waited 15 years to play this game properly, and now it is here, and it is real, and it's actually loaded onto my PS5, and I'm so happy that it's as good as it is. Thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this review of the Fatal Frame 4 remaster. It is finally here. If you've enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. As always, let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Donate to me on Patreon if you're so inclined. It would be very much appreciated. Why not check out one of these other videos as well while you're here? And with that, thank you for watching. I'll see you again very soon.